The curse of the ugly prince. Once upon a time, in a prosperous kingdom called E.W.T, ruled a wise and beloved king, Badu, and his graceful queen, Nana Abena. The kingdom was known for its wealth, peace, and culture, where the arts flourished, and the people thrived under their just leadership. However, the king and queen had one source of sorrow, their only son, Prince Kofi. Prince Kofi had been born with every advantage one could hope for. He was strikingly handsome, with smooth ebony skin, sharp features, and deep brown eyes that seemed to glow like the embers of a fire. His smile could light up a room, and his regal bearing only added to his charm. The people of E.W.T adored him from the moment he could walk, always flocking around him and showering him with praise. But beneath this captivating exterior, Prince Kofi harbored a deep flaw, his character. The prince was arrogant, selfish, and cruel. He believed his beauty and royal status made him superior to everyone else. He would mock the poor, mistreat his servants, and speak ill of those who could not give him what he desired. His vanity knew no bounds, and anyone who dared to correct him faced his wrath. The king and queen, though aware of their son's behavior, were too indulgent, hoping time would soften him. But Kofi grew worse with age, his behavior becoming the subject of whispers and gossip in the kingdom. One fateful day, an old woman came to the palace gates. She was ragged, with silver hair that flowed down her back and a face worn with time. Her eyes, however, sparkled with wisdom and mischief, betraying the true nature of her spirit. Her name was Abosoma, and she was no ordinary woman. She was a sorceress, feared and respected across the land for her ability to weave powerful spells. Abosoma requested an audience with the prince, saying she had traveled far to offer him a gift in honor of his upcoming coronation. Amused, Prince Kofi agreed to meet her, thinking little of her tattered appearance. When Abosoma was brought into the grand hall, she bowed deeply before the prince, her eyes gleaming with knowing humor. "I have come to offer you a gift, Prince Kofi," Abosoma began. "I have heard of your beauty and your great charm, and I bring something that will ensure your reign as king is prosperous and long-lasting." Prince Kofi leaned back in his throne, smirking as he eyed the old woman dismissively. "And what could a poor old crone like you offer me that I don't already have?" he asked, his voice dripping with condescension. The courtiers in the room chuckled, and the princess' smirk deepened. Abosoma remained unfazed, her eyes narrowing as she spoke again. "Ah, I see. You believe your beauty and wealth are enough to carry you through life. But beware, young prince, for beauty fades, and the heart that holds no kindness is like a stone, sinking into the depths." The prince waved his hand impatiently. "Spare me your riddles, old woman. You came to offer me a gift, so give it, or be gone from my sight." Abosoma smiled, a slow, dangerous smile. "Very well, then. A gift you shall have." With a flick of her wrist, the hall darkened, and a cold wind swept through the room. The courtiers gasped in fear, and Prince Kofi's smirk faltered. Before he could react, the old woman's eyes glowed with a supernatural light, and she spoke words of power that echoed through the chamber. "For your arrogance and cruelty, I curse you, Prince Kofi," Abosoma declared, her voice ringing out like a bell. "Your handsome face, which you prize above all else, shall be taken from you. You will walk this earth as ugly as your heart has been until the day a woman falls in love with you, despite your appearance. Only then will you be restored to your former beauty. As the final words left her lips, the transformation began. Prince Kofi's smooth skin began to wither, his sharp features twisted into something grotesque. His once glowing eyes dulled, and his once perfect smile became crooked and hideous. The courtiers recoiled in horror, and even the guards took a step back. Kofi's beauty was gone, replaced by a monstrous visage that reflected the ugliness of his soul. The prince screamed in rage and fear, but it was too late. The curse had been cast, and Abosoma vanished from the hall, leaving the prince to face the consequences of his actions. For days, Prince Kofi refused to leave his chambers, consumed by anger and shame. The mirror, once his constant companion, now became his greatest enemy. He smashed every reflection of his hideous face, unable to bear the sight of what he had become. The king and queen were heartbroken, but there was nothing they could do. The old woman's curse was too powerful, and no healer or shaman in the land could reverse it. Word of the prince's transformation spread throughout the kingdom, and soon, the people who once adored him began to turn their backs on him. No longer did they flock to the palace to catch a glimpse of the handsome prince. Instead, they whispered about his fall from grace and the curse that had been laid upon him. Kofi's once lavish life was reduced to a solitary existence. He wandered the palace gardens at night, hiding from the eyes of those who might see him. He was consumed by bitterness, convinced that no woman would ever love him now that he was cursed with ugliness. His heart, once full of vanity, was now filled with sorrow and regret, but he could not bring himself to change. He still clung to the belief that his beauty had been the source of his power and worth. Months passed, and the kingdom's focus shifted from the cursed prince to more pressing matters. One such matter was the annual Festival of Harvest, a time when the people of E.W.T celebrated the abundance of their land with feasts, music, and dance. Despite his misery, Prince Kofi was still expected to attend as part of his royal duties. The thought of showing his face in public again filled him with dread, but he knew he had no choice. On the day of the festival, the palace was abuzz with activity. Merchants set up stalls, musicians tuned their instruments, and dancers practiced their routines. Amid the festivities, there was one figure who stood out, a young woman named Esenam. She was a simple village girl, known for her kindness and gentle spirit. Esenam had always been different from the other girls in her village. While they dreamt of wealth and luxury, Esenam found joy in the simple things: a sunset over the fields, the laughter of children, and the beauty of the natural world. As Esenam made her way through the crowd, she overheard people whispering about the prince. Though she had never met him, she had heard the stories of his beauty and his fall from grace. Curiosity piqued, she decided to catch a glimpse of the man who had once been the pride of the kingdom. When Prince Kofi finally appeared, shrouded in a cloak to hide his face, Esenam saw the crowd parting, their eyes filled with fear and revulsion. But as she watched him, she saw something that others did not: a deep sadness in his posture, a loneliness that mirrored the longing in her own heart. She had always believed that there was more to a person than their appearance, and something about the prince's suffering stirred her compassion. Later that evening, as the festival reached its peak, Esenam found herself wandering near the palace gardens. To her surprise, she saw Prince Kofi sitting alone by a fountain, staring into the water. His face, though hidden by the cloak, seemed to radiate sorrow. Without thinking, Esenam approached him. "You're the prince, aren't you?" she asked softly. Kofi tensed, his hands gripping the edge of the fountain. "Go away," he muttered. "I don't want to be seen." Esenam didn't leave. Instead, she sat beside him, her eyes gentle. "I don't care what you look like. I only care about who you are." The prince laughed bitterly. "Who I am? I'm a monster, a cursed fool who thought beauty was all that mattered." Esenam looked at him, her heart aching for the man beneath the curse. "You're not a monster. You're just lost." For the first time in months, Prince Kofi felt something other than anger and bitterness. He felt hope. This woman, this stranger, was speaking to him with kindness, without fear or disgust. Could it be possible that someone could see past his appearance? Over the coming weeks, Esenam continued to visit the palace, spending time with the prince in the gardens. Slowly, Kofi began to open up to her, sharing stories of his childhood, his regrets, and his longing to be free of the curse. Esenam listened without judgment, her gentle presence soothing his wounded heart. She saw the goodness buried deep within him, a goodness that had been overshadowed by years of vanity and arrogance. As time passed, something remarkable began to happen. Prince Kofi found himself changing, not in appearance, but in spirit. He began to treat the servants with respect, helping them with their tasks and offering kind words. He stopped thinking of himself as a victim and started to take responsibility for the person he had been. The prince no longer sought admiration for his looks but instead found joy in the simple acts of kindness he could offer to others. He even began to smile again, not the haughty smirk of his former self, but a quiet, genuine smile that reflected his growing humility and compassion. Esenam, too, found herself changed. Her time with Prince Kofi had shown her the power of seeing beyond the surface, and she cherished the connection they had built. The prince who had once been feared and despised was now her closest friend, and she could feel her affection for him growing deeper every day. She knew that she had fallen in love with him, not for the prince he had once been, but for the man he had become. One evening, as the two of them worked together in the palace gardens, Esenam paused by the fountain, the same one where she had first spoken to him. She turned to Prince Kofi, her heart pounding in her chest. "Kofi," she said softly, "do you remember the old woman's curse? The one that said you would only return to your true form if a woman fell in love with you?" Kofi nodded, his eyes shadowed with the pain of the memory. "Yes, I remember. But that's impossible. Who could love me as I am now?" Esenam took his hand in hers, her voice tender. "I could." The prince froze, his breath catching in his throat. He stared at Esenam, his heart racing. You love me?" She smiled, her eyes shining with warmth. "Yes, I do. Not for your looks, but for the man you've become. The kind, gentle, and humble prince who has shown me the beauty of his heart." For a moment, Kofi could not speak. His heart swelled with emotion, and tears filled his eyes. He had never believed that anyone could love him, not after the curse had taken his beauty. But here was Esenam, standing before him, offering him the one thing he had never thought he deserved, love. "I love you too, Esenam," Kofi whispered, his voice thick with emotion. more than I ever thought possible." As their words of love hung in the air, the wind around them shifted, and a soft, golden light began to swirl around Prince Kofi. He felt the familiar sensation of magic coursing through his body, but this time, it was different. It was warm, gentle, and filled with the power of love. His skin, once gnarled and twisted by the cause, began to smooth. His eyes brightened, and his features softened, returning to the handsome prince he had once been. But now, there was a depth to his beauty that had never been there before. Esenam gasped as she saw the transformation, but her smile never wavered. She had loved him when he was cursed, and she loved him still, no matter what he looked like. Prince Kofi, now restored to his former self, pulled her into his arms, overwhelmed with gratitude and joy. "The curse is broken," Kofi whispered, his voice trembling with awe. "You've set me free." Esenam shook her head, her smile gentle. "No, Kofi, you set yourself free when you opened your heart. Love only helped you find the way." The news of Prince Kofi's transformation spread throughout E.W.T like wildfire. The people, who had once feared and mocked him, now marveled at the tale of his redemption. Prince Kofi, once known for his arrogance and cruelty, was now celebrated for his kindness and wisdom. He ruled the kingdom with humility, using his position to serve his people and right the wrongs of his past. The king and queen, overjoyed at their son's return, welcomed Esenam into the royal family with open arms. The people adored her, not for her beauty, but for the goodness of her heart and the love she had shown the prince. Together, Prince Kofi and Queen Esenam became a beloved couple, their love a beacon of hope for all who held their story. As the years passed, the kingdom of E.W.T flourished under their rule. Prince Kofi's reign was marked by peace and prosperity, and he never forgot the lessons he had learned during his time under the curse. He treated every person, rich or poor, with kindness and respect, and his people loved him for it. And though the old sorceress, Abosoma, was never seen again, her curse had served its purpose. It had not been a punishment, but a lesson that true beauty comes not from one's appearance, but from the goodness of one's heart. In the end, the people of E.W.T remembered Prince Kofi not for his handsome face, but for the man he had become, a man whose heart was as beautiful as his soul. And as for Esenam, she remained by his side, the woman who had seen past the curse and found the love that had set them both free. The kingdom thrived, and the legacy of Kofi and Esenam lived on, a story of redemption, love, and the power of seeing beyond what the eyes can behold. The end. Thank you.